Hello, I'm Henry Keane. This is News Pulse at UATV. Welcome to the show. Today in the episode, the ports, the icebreakers, and what's more on fire in Russia today is first topic for your attention. Iran sends Trump a gift so expensive that Trump likes it and brags about it openly. Russia is doing just fine, they said, then they learned how for the first time in 25 years Russia is forced to sell its gold reserves. Drones have struck Russia, second key seaport on the Baltic Sea through which Moscow exports crude oil and petroleum products. This is now confirmed not only by us or Ukrainian defense forces, but by Leningrad region governor Alexander Drozdenko himself. Fire breaks out at port of Ust-Luga was hit by Ukrainian drones. Several oil tanks were hit there, and the Russian side has not yet made any public report that the fire has been successfully extinguished. Well, maybe because it has not, and still is on fire. Since the start of Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine, various facilities in Russian territory have been subjected to airstrikes, like oil refineries have been the most frequently targeted in 2024-2025. But the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine has confirmed most of the attacks, stating this is systematically implementing measures aimed at reducing the combat potential of the Russian occupational forces. Well, maybe just one last thing worth noting here. The Secretary of the Russian Security Council and former Russian Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu stated on March 17 that, I quote, "Due to the development of Ukrainian unmanned systems, no Russian region is safe anymore," end of quote. Well, I guess it was worth thinking about that before you start any war of aggressive Russian choice, Comrade Shoigu. Otherwise, accountability comes anyhow, and when least expected. Russians were ready to unleash yet another terror on Ukraine, but then something happened. Well, not just something, Ukrainian intelligence was the thing. The wizards of the Department of Unmanned Systems of the HUR, that is Ukrainian intelligence, tracked down a column of Bastion-M missile launchers in Crimea, which was on the march towards firing positions ready to unleash terror on Ukrainian cities. As a result of timely and accurate strikes, one of the launchers and two super expensive Zircon missiles were completely destroyed. Another Bastion launcher heavily damaged. 7 Russian terrorists killed or wounded. The army of the aggressor state uses Zircon missiles from the Bastion launchers primarily to terrorize the civilian population of Ukraine, in particular the southern and eastern regions. But that night, the aggressors' plans to attack peaceful cities were thwarted. The Security Service of Ukraine, SBU, marks its day today. We sincerely thank and congratulate our super special forces, and we give you, our super special audience, the top 5 of Ukrainian super special operations of this year. During Operation Spiderweb, the SBU hits 41 Russian strategic bombers. In just a few hours, the Kremlin loses amounts over $7 billion. In Novorossiysk Bay, the underwater drone Sea Baby hits the Russian submarine caliber missile carrier, further shrinking Russia's missile potential in the Black Sea. The third strike on the Crimean bridge continues a series of significant strikes carried out by SBU and seriously damages the bridge supporting structures. Now, the long-range strikes on refineries in the Russian deep air reduced oil exports by more than 30% and also limits the capability of the enemy's shadow fleet. And as billions of dollars of the aggressor's equipment has already been destroyed, well, both at the front line and in the deep air, please be sure, more to come. On March 24-25, 2026, Ukraine experienced one of the most intense air raids of the war, with Russia launching nearly 1,000 strike drones and 34 missiles in just 24 hours alone. And Ukrainian Air Defense Forces reports a record-breaking interception rate, 95%, shooting down or suppressing 906 out of the 1,000 means of airborne Russian terror. The attack was unique for its heavy use of drones during the day, with over 550 drone strikes occurring during daylight hours this time. Well, despite the high success rate of the air defense, 15 hits were recorded, resulting in at least 4 deaths and 70 more injuries. With damage reported in Lviv, Ivano-Frankivsk, and other cities. The attack specifically targeted critical energy infrastructure, again attempting to destroy the energy system. The Bernardin Monastery, by the way, an architectural ensemble of national significance that is also included in the UNESCO International List of Cultural Property under enhanced protection, was also hit and seriously damaged by Russian drones in Lviv. That is how Russians care about almost anything, really, like human life or history. Destruction is what matters to them. Iran has announced new rules for passage through the Strait of Hormuz. Non-hostile ships may transit and only in coordination with Iranian authorities. But before the conflict began, approximately 1/5 of the world's oil and a significant volume of cargo shipments passed through the strait. Now, Iran imposes fees on ships crossing Strait of Hormuz. According to Bloomberg, the amount can reach up to $2 million per voyage, effectively establishing an unofficial transit fee. Meanwhile, Trump is sure that the United States has already won the war against Iran already and has delivered 15 points of the peace plan. President of the United States has announced that Iran has agreed never to possess nuclear weapons again. Special attention has been also paid to the situation surrounding the Strait of Hormuz, which has effectively become blocked following the start of the US and Israeli military operation. But at the same time, the United States has sent an aircraft carrier and thousands of Marines to the Middle East. Also, Trump stated that the new Iranian leaders had just presented him with, quote, significant gift, which indicates that the United States is dealing with the right people, says Trump.
They gave us a present, and the present arrived today. And it was a very big present worth a tremendous amount of money. And I'm not going to tell you what that present is, but it was a very significant prize. And they gave it to us, and they said they were going to give it. So that meant one thing to me: we're dealing with the right people.
Is that nuclear related?
No, it wasn't nuclear related. It was oil and gas related.
Well, thank God it wasn't nuclear. But Trump has called on the people of Hungary to support Viktor Orban in the upcoming elections. Well, President of the United States called him a leader who ensures, I quote, law and order in his country. Well, I guess after Hungarian authorities took 7 Ukrainian collectors hostage and stole $100 million cash owned by Ukrainian state-owned Oshad Bank. That is what Donald Trump calls friendly to America these days. Well, it seems that beyond the obvious axis of evil, China, Russia, Iran, and North Korea, there is also the MAGA axis of evil, which seeks to bring far-right populists to power in Europe and worldwide at all costs. Typically, they are anti-EU, anti-Ukraine, and maintain suspiciously ambiguous relationships with Russia. But there is no ambiguity, really. There is a threat. Orban in Hungary, Fico in Slovakia, the AfD party in Germany, and Le Pen in France. They all conduct massive propaganda campaigns across social media, almost openly funded by the Kremlin. And about the Kremlin, for the first time in 25 years, Russia is selling off its gold reserves. A hole, literally, has emerged in the Russian budget that can no longer be filled by other means. And in January, the Central Bank of the Russian Federation sells 300,000 ounces of physical gold from its reserves, and then another 200,000 ounces follows in February. As a result, the volume of Russia's gold reserves has dropped to a 4-year low. More about real situation in Putin's golden economy in our next story for you.
Cash is making a comeback. Russians are trying to protect their savings, Ukraine's Foreign Intelligence Service reports. According to the agency, in January, Russian citizens withdrew more than $19.5 billion from card-linked and savings accounts, while returning only a quarter of that amount to deposits. The net outflow from the banking system totaled nearly $14 billion, the second largest figure since 2010.
The record still belongs to March 2022, when, after the full-scale invasion of Ukraine and the introduction of sanctions, the public withdrew $25.9 billion. This negative trend can be explained by several factors at once. Tighter Kremlin control over financial transactions and disruptions in internet infrastructure are pushing citizens to keep their money away from banks. Inflation expectations are also playing a role. Households are cutting savings in favor of current spending, no longer believing that bank deposits can preserve their purchasing power. From a statement by Ukraine's Foreign Intelligence Service.
The number of Russians declared bankrupt is rising sharply, and by the start of 2026 had exceeded 2 million people. The reasons are high household debt, inflation, rising prices, and low incomes. Last year, Russians' overdue consumer debt reached nearly 2.5 trillion rubles, up by a third compared with 2024.
Russians cannot survive without debt, without loans, but they are not really able to repay those loans either. Especially now, when wages have basically stopped growing, prices continue to rise, Paracrete, and life is becoming more expensive. People are getting pulled into this debt trap, taking on more and more debt, then going through personal bankruptcy and having everything taken away that can be taken away. The situation is becoming more difficult. This is not yet a total catastrophe, Naspikara, but it is a kind of misery and poverty into which people who were still poor yesterday are now sinking even deeper. After bankruptcy, they become destitute.
Every third small business owner in Russia is considering shutting down this year. The main reasons are a sharp rise in the tax burden, a high key interest rate, falling incomes, and weakening demand. In the first quarter of 2026, business expectations fell to their worst level on record. 52% of entrepreneurs expect their situation to deteriorate even further.
Russia is a very cheap country. Nothing here is worth what it should be worth in a normal economy, with normal rules of the game, with protection of property rights, with normal Western investors, with a healthy stock market, and so on. So all of Russia, with its population of 140 million, is worth about as much as one New York.
Oil giant Lukoil posted a loss for the first time in 30 years. According to the Moscow Times, the company recorded a net loss of more than 1 trillion rubles last year. Despite accounting for around 15% of Russia's oil production, it has run into serious financial difficulties.
The company was hit by blocking U.S. sanctions, and the operations of its foreign subsidiaries were effectively paralyzed. Numerous attempts to sell its foreign network, with a book value of $22 billion, have still not been approved by the U.S. Treasury. Lukoil had originally planned to sell its foreign assets to Gunvor, a company founded by billionaire Gennady Timchenko, who is close to Putin. But the deal collapsed after U.S. Treasury described Gunvor as a Kremlin puppet. From an article by the Moscow Times,
Russia's central bank began large-scale sales of gold from state reserves at the start of this year, marking the biggest sell-off of the precious metal in the past 25 years, the Moscow Times reports. In just the first 2 months of 2026, the central bank sold around 15 tons of gold. By March, reserves had fallen to less than 2,500 tons, a 4-year low. The gold sales became a forced measure amid the depletion of the liquid portion of the National Wealth Fund and rising war-related spending. Reported by Victoria Chistyukina, UATV News.
Well, it seems to be it at least for today. My name is Henry Keane. Thank you so very much for being with us and for your attention. We appreciate that. Please consider leaving a comment, like, and maybe even subscribe to our channel so to stay tuned to what tomorrow hides. UATV will be there to inform you in Ukrainian perspective about whatever happens. Stay safe and tune for more. Goodbye.